Ever wonder why the majority of people have jobs instead of being independent entrepreneurs? Hey there, Daniel Hartman, Community Machinery, Sackville, New Brunswick. Today's virtue of the day is accountability. Now, if we think about day-to-day jobs and as well the school system, there's this whole structure that's really provided that creates timelines and a structure of who we're being accountable to, in terms of we're being accountable to a teacher that's accountable to the principal, who's accountable to the superintendent, and superintendent has their superiors, and ultimately it's the taxpayers and the parents that guide the decisions that get put in place in the school to some degree. And even looking at the structure in a family where the grandparents ultimately hold the wisdom and might give some guidance to parents that are all caught up in their own emotions, but the parents also create some guidelines in terms of kids, you got to eat your vegetables and go to school. And because left to the kids, everyone would just eat cookies, never wash their face, and watch cartoons all day. And that wouldn't be something where we'd really stay healthy in the long term, in terms of we wouldn't be looking after our physical bodies, which would create great unhappiness. That being said, accountability in the business sense, where a lot of times there's a lot of learning we can bring in by creating our own sense of accountability. And I've learned this, and I'm still learning this, if I don't put a clear agreement in place with a client when we start on a project in terms of the timeline, how much it's going to cost, what the end result is going to be, that if a client's not happy at the end and they say, hey, what can we do about this? Anyone who's really in a business and wants to make it last, they got to make sure all these clients are doing backflips, telling their friends about how great it is to do work with you. And it's one of those things where that's a lot of times where we can have self-discipline and hold ourselves accountable for creating the kind of framework that makes a business feel supportive to others who are looking for the service or products that come from it. And sometimes it's that pain, like, oh yeah, I got to give this person a discount because I ran over budget, or it didn't meet its scope, so I won't charge until it's working. A lot of times that's one of those confines I like to put on jobs, as far as I'll wait till someone is satisfied with the end product until the invoicing is completed, because otherwise there's no motivation, or a lot of times there's very little motivation. It's a great way of earning trust of clients. So that's a really great accountability strategy. Some other ones where this video wasn't the first thing I would have done today, except a good friend and I have been having a weekly conversation for the past few weeks, and we've been setting some goals. So one of the things I added in as a goal this week, since I'd really been slacking off on the YouTube videos from my initial goal, was creating a video every day. And that accountability, knowing someone else is watching my back and is going to say, hey, how did you make out on that? That's such a great strategy, because it completely changed my day from, oh, well, I'm not really in the mood to make one of these videos today, to just going and doing it and getting into the mood. There's this author who visited town, Joseph Boyden, and he said, writing a book, if you're always waiting for your muse, you'll never do it. And perfect advice. There's another thing I was just thinking of, where if we really want to succeed and find a lot of people to keep us accountable, really being vulnerable and having people, sometimes we know other people's goals as well as ours, and that can help leverage making sure there's a mutual accountability, and seeing that we don't need to accomplish every single goal we set. Sometimes it's a matter of revisiting, oh, well, what kept you from making a video every day? Or what kept you from following through on charting out what your ideal job would be for the future, or what your life calling is. So when you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning, what you're going to do. And accountability is such an important aspect that we don't really talk about in our culture. A lot of times it's more of after the fact nailing someone up on a cross because they didn't do what everyone expected them to do. And instead of looking at where we are culturally and where we are evolutionarily and recognizing there's a lot of things that we just gotta let go of in our culture, and instead of having really high expectations, saying, hey, how can you remediate this thing? How can we bring in some kind of creative remedial discipline? Because a lot of times the people who are the best ones for the jobs, they have their off days. They might make calls that aren't in the best interest of everyone all the time. But how do we really bring in something that helps develop more self-honesty, more insight, and also allows us to see others modeling what it looks like in terms of true forgiveness, where instead of locking people away, having people given the opportunity to change things for the coming generations so they won't fall into those same ruts subconsciously, and instead bring a new, more ritualistic, instead of getting into those habits, something more new, ritualistic, and a real conscious response to something that might otherwise be there with us culturally for a lifetime. And that's one of those things that a lot of times in politics, we have such high expectations for politicians instead of realizing that we're not in their shoes and that there's so many different things calling for our attention in this day and age. We can all realize that. There's an infinite number of things to get caught up and distracted by. And how to be more supportive, and how to recognize that there's, on one hand, there's this big machine we all pay into that we like having our, going to the grocery store and buying food, which requires a lot of transportation, which requires a lot of energy use. And if we don't like the government putting in all kinds of different pipelines, that's also like one finger pointing, three pointing back. And that's a huge part of accountability in terms of realizing we're always the biggest judges of ourselves, and if we're judging others, we've got our guns blazing. There's also so much coming back as far as we really project our own inner world so much on others. And I think that's one of the biggest things of accountability is really being gentle in the process. And yesterday's virtue of the day was acceptance. I think that also really ties in well as a theme as far as knowing that not everything has to change here at once. In fact, if we choose to see this as the perfect place, and there's a Jim Rohn quote I heard the other day: if the first chapter everything works out perfect, and the second chapter everything works out perfect, and the third chapter of a book everything works out perfect, we're not going to read the book. We're reading the book because we like the experience of this drama, this pushing and pulling, and that if our life reads like a book, that we can really come into seeing that things happen for a reason, how to be more attuned to looking at those things in the present moment. Oh, what might be the reason? What might be the really good thing? What emotion am I best served by feeling right here in this moment to really see how this could be an opportunity for me? How is this going to help my growth as a person? How is this going to allow me to get closer to other people in the long term? On that note, please like, please subscribe, please comment below, and there's also a notification button there as far as when new videos come out. But that won't be a thing right now because video every day, until at least all the virtues from the Virtue Project get covered. And yeah, virtueproject.org is where we've got this whole list of virtues from that is going to be a daily topic, unless something else more inspiring comes up. Thanks so much.